All right, so from last week, one of the things we see that we're going to be talking about this week is arthropod success. And the most common one that we talked about last week was what? Well, yes, it has something to do with spiders, you could say. We said as we're moving forward, we're talking about arthropod success. So, what might be an yes. Okay. Just a moment then. So, back to our original question then. What was the success story that we talked about arthropods last week? Well, no, it's something very specific we talked about. No. If we don't know, well then, yeah, they've got an exoskeleton, as opposed to, it provides protection, but there's other things that exoskeleton does, okay? And one of the things that we had talked about was, okay, with this protective shell, okay, when we talk about vertebrates, that major protein is either going to be keratin or collagen, but in this case, it's chitin for these animals. And with an exoskeleton, the reason that we say that it's versatile is because what it actually does, it not only just provides protection, they don't have to sacrifice this mobility because it provides muscle attachment. So you could say it's like a tank on wheels. So as we all know, you up armor some vehicles, it provides protection, and with tracks or wheels, that certainly gives it mobility. So one of the things that we had observed with the size of video, now we can say months ago, why would it be the idea of looking at insects not the size of, you could say, I was going to say baseball caps because that's the first thing I just saw over there. Why can't insects grow the size of house cats or even that of a type of dog? Okay, so the oxygen levels probably are not high enough, which is true. You have to be able to fuel that metabolism, and we just don't have enough oxygen in the atmosphere. But notice what we see here at the bottom, okay? With that increasing size then, okay, you're going to have, it's going to become a lot heavier, that exoskeleton. So then, now you're going to perhaps sacrifice some of that, almost said nobility, but mobility. Okay. So, is there a similar process when we talk about vertebrates, though? And the answer is yes. Okay, but you have to think of reptiles. It's something similar to this. It's not the exact same, but it's something very, very similar. So what might be a reptile that goes through this process? Does anyone know? Yeah, snakes will do this. And what we see is, yes, they shed their outer skin, but they don't shed their skeleton, okay? Because, again, reptiles would have an endoskeleton where they're actually have that protection on the inside rather than the outside like what we see with an exoskeleton. Okay. So here is our next key, okay, is having these segmented appendages, because remember, with an exoskeleton, there has to be a place for these muscles to attach, and that is with an exoskeleton. It's also with an endoskeleton, but we're not talking about vertebrates. Okay, and okay. Oh, state football tournaments. Is it just yourself in here?
I'm assuming Alan's going to go with me.
Okay. So Wednesday, that just affects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just you 5 then, correct? Okay. And then on plan book, I think it says no class, but with just 5 of us gone, I think we'll be able to keep moving. So just keep that in mind. So then your last day in here is tomorrow then.
I'll be here Friday.
And Friday, yeah. Yep. Okay, so do we remember what are some functions of vertebrate bone tissue, especially humans? They certainly provide muscle attachments because that's what we see here, okay? So they also store minerals, okay? Provide protection, that's going to be with any type of skeleton. Then other aspects might be produce red blood cells, that's number 4, and then number 5, I got to think about that for a moment. I suppose you could say provide structure, okay? So, yeah, we got the construction crew right outside the door. I don't know, I thought I saw a big crane go rolling by, so I'm thinking they're going to start setting some walls up here pretty soon.
Are they going to do brick like this, do you know? Or?
I do not believe so. I certainly think that a lot of that's going to be, like I said, precast structures. The reason we can maybe say that with confidence because earlier this morning saw a big crane go rolling by, so I'm guessing that's something that they would be able to take off the back of a truck and start setting them up in consecutive portions of a wall. Okay. So we have an exoskeleton. Now, as you can see, segmented appendages, because one of the things we like to think of, what about if you had to scratch your head and there was no joint here at your elbow or even at your fingers or your wrist? The only thing you'd be able to do is something like this. Not very efficient. Okay? Or to pick something up with no joints, you wouldn't be able to do anything. The only thing you'd be able to do is just touch the surface. You don't have that ability to wrap things around. So these jointed appendages is certainly going to be an example, especially for that of mobility, because you have the striated muscles, and striated muscle has to attach to something, which would be its exoskeleton. Now, there's one thing that we only talked about that was another function of an exoskeleton besides muscle attachments. We said scorpions was our animal we talked about. So if we make a reference to the Sonoran Desert, here in the southwest part of the country, whether it's New Mexico, Arizona, I believe, maybe parts of Nevada. Okay? Animals that live in that type of environment, they have to be able to provide, what do I want to say, protect, I think, their water loss. And that's something that an exoskeleton would do as well. Sorry? Yes. Okay, so I think there's probably, okay, we want to do this one. And then, okay, then we'll get through this air as well. Okay. And one of the things that you'll see with tarantulas, okay, one of the things that sticks out with those is those have lots of hair. And not only do some of these hairs, as you can see, serve as sensory functions, they'll also serve as protection. And what the narrator will talk about is those that actually flick their hair, okay? And what that does is it actually serves as an irritant, just like pollen and mold might irritate us. This is something that nature selected these animals to have that hair to flick into the air if they feel threatened from any sort of predator. So hair can have a multitude of functions. Here we're just talking about modified sensory organs. And then this would be another example of why arthropods can only get to be so big, okay? Because what do you notice about your diet as you grow older? As you get bigger or growing older, what happens with the amount of nutrients that you need? Does it stay the same, or does it get bigger, or you need more? So this is something that you need as well, okay? You need lots and lots of air. So the bigger the animal, these tracheal tubes would probably have to be bigger then as well. And once you start hollowing out a structure like this, there's just not enough to support that larger exoskeleton, even if there is a lot of oxygen in the atmosphere. Okay? So what we call those exterior openings is called spiracles, and that's one of your vocab terms. But what the spiracles open up to is what we call tracheal tubes. Okay? And that's probably one of your vocab terms as well, spiracles and tracheal tubes. If not, we'll make reference to them. We want to stop when we get down to here. Okay? So since these animals don't have lungs, okay, they don't have to be taking in oxygen. It's a type of passive respiration to where it just flows into their body. And they're found in different parts of an insect's body. The reason we know that is when you look at insect wings, that's where, especially with flies, that's where their tracheal tubes are. So should you take a fly and take its wings off, you're really making them suffocate, because then there's no way for them to take air in rather than swatting them. Okay? So, and of course with aquatic forms, we're still not talking about lungs of any sort yet. But with terrestrial arthropods, some of them actually do have lungs, but we'll talk about that later. They're called book lungs. But until then, that's really all I have. So we will catch up to you next time.